Let's bring in ABC News legal contributors Brian Buckmeyer and Terry Austin, along with our Kenneth Moten, who joins us live from Fairfax, Virginia, outside the courthouse. Kenneth, I want to go to you first. There you are, in the sweltering heat, ready for a verdict, and we didn't get it. What's the scene like there?
No, we didn't, but after nearly 13 hours of deliberations, this jury of 7 people, 5 men and 2 women, have reached a verdict, and somebody won. But as you just mentioned, Terry, we've got a partial verdict. I don't think I've seen this happen, at least in recent memory, of something of this magnitude, a case of this magnitude, because remember, we were told that there was a verdict 1 hour ago. So during this 1 hour gap, the fact that the jury didn't complete its job and the judge saw that and that punitive damages were not specified on the jury form, that's just incredible to me. And you've covered the courts for a long time as well, so I'm curious to know what you think of that. But behind me, you see this crowd of people that's gathered. I will say, you mentioned, Terry, that it's sweltering here. It's about 91 degrees here in Fairfax, Virginia, outside this courthouse. There was nobody out here except for the media about an hour and 10 minutes ago. And then as you see a police presence that is happening here outside this courthouse to keep things calm and orderly, then you started to see people trickle in. And you see right behind me, I'm going to step out for just a second so we can zoom in and I can show you the crowd that's gathered outside this courthouse. You can see that a number of these people actually appear to be here in support of actor Johnny Depp. They are holding signs in support saying justice for Johnny. There is someone dressed in a Pirates of the Caribbean costume as well. A little bit of a sideshow, a little bit of a circus here. But we saw throngs and crowds of people outside this 6-week trial during the course of this 6-week trial. And here, now that we finally have a verdict in this case, this high-profile celebrity Hollywood case here, we've got these people who are showing up here ready to hear the verdict. And again, you just heard the judge say there's partial work that's been done here by the jury. We have a verdict. Somebody won, it appears, but we don't know who at this point. Again, just to go over the details, $50 million defamation suit by Johnny Depp, $100 million countersuit by his ex-wife, Amber Heard. This trial over the 6-week period, it got nasty. We had a litany of lurid details that came out about their very short 15-month marriage, and it all happened. Johnny Depp's lawsuit all sparked after a 2018 op-ed that was written in the Washington Post by Amber Heard, and saying that essentially the allegations that she made of sexual assault, sexual violence, it ruined his career. And she said the same about him. And so as we wait for this verdict, we also know that Johnny Depp is not even in the country. He was performing in London and the UK yesterday. His attorney says he had other and prior work commitments, but Amber Heard's camp came out with a scathing statement, very short, that said that your presence shows your priorities, essentially. And it says a lot that Johnny Depp is not here in Fairfax, Virginia, inside that courtroom at this hour as that verdict prepares to be read.
All right, we've got a lot to talk about here as we wait, because we really don't know how long we will be waiting. Terry, Brian, let's bring you into this conversation. What do you think, Terry? How long could this take? Are you surprised by what we just saw in the courtroom? Also, the fact that Johnny Depp isn't in the courtroom. Okay, we understand prior work, but we're talking about a lot of money and a story that's basically topped the headlines all across the globe. I mean, there's a lot of people that are interested in this. You would think he'd be in the courtroom.
Well, absolutely, Kira. I would be there if I were him, but I think he had this prior commitment. He sent a statement saying, look, I am away, but I am listening. But I do think it would mean a lot to the jury if he had been there. As for what exactly happened, I think the judge did not look at that jury form until it was brought out for the reading. Otherwise, she probably would have sent the jury back. Clearly, someone has been found to have defamed the other. And the question is, how much will they get? Because they were left blank, both on the compensatory and the punitive, my thought is it won't be a lot of money because they weren't thinking about a lot of money. Maybe they don't understand what compensatory is. Maybe they don't understand what punitive is, but they need to go back, figure that out now that they have determined at least one of those parties did defame the other.
And Brian, I want to ask you about what's going on here and explain a question I have. I'm not a lawyer. I play one on TV, but I'm not. And so my question is, can both sides, look, they both accused the other of defaming them. So could both sides be found to have defamed the other? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Terry, you're not a lawyer, but you know a few things. I think the famous Jay-Z lyrics, you can check that out later. But you are correct. You can say that both sides are liable. And I think Terry Austin kind of hit the nail on the head. Because the damages wasn't at the forefront of what the jury is thinking, they're not putting it down either compensatory or punitive. I think their focus was on liability. Who defamed who? And as Terry said, and I don't mean to reiterate it, we may see them come back out pretty quickly. Maybe they just throw down a few numbers here or there. I know that I don't think in terms of the millions of dollars. I can't imagine the average citizen or any one of these jurors are thinking in terms of millions of dollars. So if you're deciding who gets 50, 60, 70, 80, because don't forget, Amber Heard's attorney said, hey, we just put the $100 million kind of as a placeholder. You figure out what the compensatory damages are. You figure out what the punitive damages are, which, and again, I'm completely reading tea leaves, but if you leave a jury to decide damages and you don't give them that guidance and they come back not filling it out, in my mind, I don't think that lack of guidance was very memorable to the jury. And so this makes me think at least that Amber Heard's attorneys didn't really lead the jury well enough in kind of filling out the compensatory and the punitive damages. And when you look at Johnny Depp's closing, they were much more in terms of who's liable, who's defamed. And so in terms of timing, this little kind of slip up of the compensatory and punitive damages, I'm leaning to think that Johnny Depp might be coming out pretty much on top, even though I think he should be there in the court.
Okay, money aside, of course, we're all very interested to see what happens money-wise. Terry, what stood out to you as you followed this trial? Give us some highlights. Johnny Depp highlights, Amber Heard highlights.
You know, I think most of the highlights came from Johnny Depp's side. I mean, clearly when he did his rebuttal case, we saw Kate Moss come back on the stand, and she came back on the stand only because we heard Amber Heard mention her name. Otherwise, it would not have been let in. And I do think that the jury and the public looked at that and were pretty impressed that she came to do this testimony. I think Morgan Knight, if you remember, he was the Hicksville manager. He came in there and he talked about the fact that there was definitely not a lot of damage done, that there was that one light fixture. It totally really just did not support what Amber Heard was saying. And I think the other Morgan in the case, Morgan Tremaine, he's the TMZ individual. If you remember, he got into a little spat with Elaine Breedenhoff, and frankly, I thought he was very colorful. I thought that he was very truthful and very credible because people really understood that that's where the tape came from, Amber Heard. He got that video from Amber Heard. The only way they would have been able to put it on in 15 minutes is if they got it from the source, and they did. And that's just what she said, the opposite. So I think that that was very pivotal. The last thing I'll say as far as testimony was Amber Heard's testimony herself. I think when Camille Vasquez cross-examined her, both on the direct case and on the rebuttal, she got out some amazing information. And one of the pieces of information was for that sexual abuse when they were in Australia. How could Johnny Depp possibly sexually abuse her if his finger is cut off? I thought that was really good on Camille Vasquez's part.
And that testimony, of course, as I say, as we've been talking about, captivated the nation all around the world. People were watching. So I want to go back to Kenneth on the scene there at the courthouse in Fairfax, Virginia, and ask about the social phenomenon that this has become and what seems on social media to be an overwhelming pro-Johnny Depp bias, which has kind of caused a backlash among feminists who say this is the last thing women need, to see a woman who came forward and did have some evidence of bruises, some evidence from her witnesses that she had contemporaneous complaints that Johnny Depp had hit her, and she gets destroyed on social media. What's the atmosphere socially and there at the courthouse around these two antagonists in court?
Terry, many are calling this the TikTok trial because of the way this is played out on social media. And you actually had Amber Heard, who took the stand at one point and said she's getting death threats. She's being harassed on social media because of this trial, because of the testimony and the statements and the developments and details that have come out of this trial. And so what we see here is you see people here behind me, you see the people in front of the courthouse here waiting for this verdict, waiting to find out what the jury decided here. There is a buzz. And I will say that social media probably brought a lot of these people out here at this hour, those who didn't know why this case was happening in Fairfax, Virginia, some who didn't know it was happening in Fairfax at all until they saw not only the news, but they started to see it on social media as the headlines from Instagram to TikTok, they really started to play out here. And I will say, if you take a look, I want to actually zoom out here and show you that we have a lot of media that, of course, is out here as showing a little bit behind the scenes, typically of big court cases that we see here on the other side of this tent and this setup is actually where the microphones are for the press conference that we are expecting to happen. We are not sure, and we have not confirmed a news conference will happen with either party, but it is set up for them just in case, and we will bring that to you live right here on ABC News Live if and when it happens. And then you see right here behind me is more and more people who have gathered once they found out, once we put out the alert, once the media put out the alert that a verdict had been reached. That happened, around 1:30 or so, and then it was around 2 o'clock. We started to see that foot traffic outside the Fairfax County Courthouse really pick up here. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we're seeing a lot of support for Johnny Depp. We saw that support throughout social media, and that's why you saw Amber Heard take the stand saying that this social media phenomenon of this trial, these dueling defamation suits here, cases, has really is impacting me, has impacted my case. And obviously the judge is stickler for the rules, trying to make sure that whatever happened in the gallery, what happened on social media didn't infiltrate this case and potentially have an impact. We will see what side the jury came down on. Hopefully that will happen in just a few minutes, but a little bit of surprise turn of events at the top of 3 there when the jury hadn't completed its job.
Well, the jury hadn't completed its job, and the job could be simple or very difficult. And I want to go to Brian at that. This is now, the assignment the jury has now is how do you express the damage that someone suffered, whichever side, both sides were defamed, in monetary terms. As I say, that can be a difficult question. That can sometimes, in cases, you have actual sort of guidelines. You know how much the medical costs were if somebody was physically injured, or even psychologically, the care that they might have had. In this case, how you already mentioned, Brian, that you didn't think that that Amber Heard's lawyer gave the jury much guidance. How will they go about deciding the question they have? And this could take a while, it seems to me, depending on the jurors, who they are and how they solve problems like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually think, because again, we don't know who won yet. We know that someone's liable, but I do think we would see a quicker decision based on damages for Johnny Depp than we would for Amber Heard, just simply by the fact that Johnny Depp is making the argument that this hit his pocket. It hit his pocket and in turn also hurt his reputation. And he can calculate based on the franchises that he's been in. We know how much Johnny Depp has made in the past and how much he would likely make in the future based on him being one of Hollywood's biggest actors, especially at the beginning of Pirates of the Caribbean and then even somewhat through the rest. Of course, the movies kind of dwindled in how much they were bringing, but we know how much of an actor he is. But if you just simply ask the question, if the jury is coming back with Amber Heard winning this case, what's the dollar amount for what she accused Johnny Depp of? What's the dollar amount for the death threats that she's saying she's getting, the backlash that she's saying she's getting, this sexual assault? I think if it's damages for Amber Heard, we may be here for a minute.
We're going to take you back in the courtroom.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.